Hi, I'm King County Executive Dow Constantine. I had the opportunity to meet with elected and community leaders a few hours ago in the city of Burien, which is just celebrating its 25th anniversary. I grew up just up the road in West Seattle and spent a lot of time in Burien, representing Burien as a state legislator, county council member, as King County executive. But when I was much younger, my dad taught at Highline Community College. When I was 3 going on 4, he would drive me down to M-Bomb in the mornings and drop me off at a little preschool there in a church basement on 152nd. I remember vividly experiencing one of the earliest leadership moments of my life when I was asked to stand in front of the class, hold the little flag, and lead my classmates in preschool in the Pledge of Allegiance. A lot has changed in Burien and King County in the time since. But today, we are experiencing really remarkable, rapid, unprecedented change in our region. From the depths of the Great Recession, our corner of the country rebounded like no other. That, along with our mountains and forests and our progressive values, has brought people here at a rate that we have not seen since the gold rush. In just the last 6 years, King County's population has grown at twice the historical pace, and it shows no sign of slowing down. Here's a statistic for you. In 2012, $2 billion in new construction took place in King County. 5 years later, just 5 years later, that skyrocketed to nearly $10 billion, an all-time record. And there are more residential permits in the pipeline so far this year than last. This place is changing. We are changing. Through migration and annexation, yes, but also locals settling down and having families of their own. Cities like Burien have grown dramatically. The city of Burien started out with 28,000 people a quarter century ago. Today, 51,000 residents call Burien home. Where all this change is taking us and how our community will evolve is almost impossible to predict. But here in King County, in Burien, we see the direction that we want our nation to go. We take inspiration from the journey of Burien. It began with something that sounded so simple. Last year, the City Council passed an immigration ordinance, Ordinance 651. And it reaffirms simply that Burien is a welcoming city, that no one would be asked for their immigration papers if they needed city services. We all know what happened next. Burien, a quiet little city along the Sound, became the center of a storm. And when the clouds finally parted, Burien became a symbol of the change we want to see. Burien affirmed that in this time of uncertainty and impermanence, change can be good. When we welcome new people, when we embrace new ideas, change opens up new opportunities. When we find ways to accommodate growth without sacrificing what makes this place so special, change challenges us to build stronger communities. When regional government innovates, improves the quality of life for our residents, ensures every person has the opportunity to fulfill their potential, change can lift us to new heights. At this, the outset of my 3rd term as county executive, we are not only embracing change, we are leading it. Let me begin with a major restructuring of county government. This summer, I will transmit legislation to create a new Department of Local Services to improve how we serve the 250,000 people who live in unincorporated King County. This new department will provide unincorporated areas with a focused point of accountability that has not existed before, a conduit to elevate ideas, needs, and concerns directly to me and my cabinet. To make building and construction more predictable and consistent with local values, the department will include permitting and environmental review. To make sure we're targeting resources and coordinating work on our chronically underfunded roads and bridges, the new department will include road services, which is currently part of the Department of Transportation. To understand local needs and to make sure King County supports youth events, summer festivals, and all the things that make for strong neighborhoods, the Department of Local Services will include our current Community Services Area program. What it means for people who live throughout rural King County and in places like Vashon Island, Redmond Ridge, East Federal Way, Fairwood, East Renton, West Hill, and White Center is this. You will always know whom to call. You will get a speedy reply. You will get results. I want to thank Senior Deputy Executive Fred Jarrett for leading this work so ably. And I want to acknowledge the support of Councilmember Reagan Dunn, who passionately advocates on behalf of the residents of Southeast King County, and of Councilmember Kathy Lambert, who always makes sure the voice of rural areas is heard loud and clear. Next, I will transmit legislation to make King County Metro Transit its own department and elevate Metro's general manager to the status of department director. Rob Gannon will be held directly accountable for implementing my vision for transit that is safe, reliable, and efficient. Every weekday, Metro carries more than 500,000 riders. 3,000 operators behind the wheel of more than 1,500 buses, plus Link Light Rail, Rapid Ride, community shuttles, as well as van pools, access service for those who are disabled. After deep and painful cuts to transit service following the Great Recession, we've increased Metro service by 15% since 2014, 7 consecutive rounds of service expansion, with one more on the way in September. Together with Sound Transit, we provided 155 million rides last year, again leading the nation in ridership growth. Just 25% of downtown Seattle commuters now drive alone, the lowest it has ever been. I know Rob shares my belief that transit is more than just a good way to get around. It is essential to providing access to jobs and education and all this region has to offer. Transit levels the playing field. It helps people build for themselves a better life. There's more. Within Metro, we will explore and deploy new ways to move people by forming partnerships between government, business, and labor. I will start by convening a mobility roundtable by this summer and moving ahead with new ideas now. One of the first will be a pilot with a mobility service to offer on-demand shuttles to overcrowded park and ride and transit centers. We were awarded a federal grant to develop a program with rideshare companies to help people get to major bus stops. I want to thank Councilmember Claudia Balducci for her commitment to making sure Metro meets the needs of our growing county. The people of this region deserve the best transit system in the nation, and I aim to provide exactly that. I've spent considerable time and much thought on how to further reduce the number of youth in detention while also eliminating racial and ethnic disparities, how to keep families strong, how to keep communities safe. Not even a week ago in Burien, 2 young lives were cut short. We mourn, as we always do, when children die of violence. Violence begets violence. Trauma creates trauma. We must break the cycle. Since 2002, we've reduced the average daily population of young people in the juvenile system at the Youth Services Center from 212 to fewer than 50. In fact, there were 39 as of this past Friday, the lowest in the nation for a jurisdiction the size of King County. Youth are brought by more than a dozen police agencies from throughout King County. About a quarter are presented by the Seattle Police Department for booking. Many are diverted to alternatives or sent home. Most of the rest are out of detention in 3 to 5 days. Even though these young people are at the Youth Services Center for such a short time, any length of time in detention can be traumatic. We must do better for them, to help their families heal, to help those victimized by crime heal, to look upstream and reduce the trauma and inequities that will inevitably lead another youth into trouble. I set a goal of 0 youth detention, and I asked Deputy Executive Rhonda Berry to lead its implementation. 0 youth detention is a lofty goal, but it serves as a guidepost for transformational change. It forces us to ask in every situation, what can we do to give this kid the best chance at redemption and a better life? What could we have done differently? And what can we do for other young people so that they may never be in a similar situation? Today, as part of that effort, I'm announcing a major reform in how we approach juvenile services. A cross-government team chaired by Public Health Director Patty Hayes and Superior Court Chief Administrative Officer Paul Scherfy determined that a public health approach is appropriate for all children, youth, and families, whether they're formally involved in the justice system or not. They said that youth and families should be supported before and, if necessary, during and after they're involved in the justice system. They called for all systems involving youth and families, schools, courts, human services, housing, to share accountability for providing support and connections. Solutions reside in community, and only through authentic partnerships will we be able to achieve the best outcomes. I emphatically agree, and I have an announcement. To further that vision, all of our work within the Juvenile Division of the Department of Adult and Juvenile Detention will be placed in the care of public health. Dominique Davis, co-founder and chief executive of Community Passageways, one of our community partners, said it best. He noted that when a young person is placed in detention, there is, in his words, an impact on the community's health, one that is felt for countless generations to come. Dom went on to say that it would be profound if for once the system and community had a partnership to change the criminal justice legacy rather than the system responding belatedly. To Dom, to all those on this journey to zero youth detention, I want to affirm that we are committed to this change. And we are creating the legacy we all want to leave for youth today and for generations to come. Everyone can have a success story. Those words are from a young woman who met Dom after she faced assault and theft charges and chose to participate in community passageways instead of serving time in detention. She was all of 16. Jahila Moody finished the program, but she fell back in with the same old crowd. It was Dom who called every day, made sure she got to school, to work, and helped her find that strength to change. How's this for a schedule? At work at Starbucks at 3:30 in the morning, off by 10:30, online classes from 11 to 3:30, and then a few hours for her passion, dance. Jahila graduated from high school on time. She now works for the University of Washington on juvenile justice issues and is part of our Juvenile Justice Equity Steering Committee Youth Advisory Group. Let's hear it again. Everyone can have a success story. I want to recognize Jahila and Dominique and all those who pour their hearts and souls into making a better life for young people. In the last legislative session, we convinced lawmakers to change state law so that county prosecutors can divert more kids to alternatives to adjudication and detention. This is another opportunity for us to help communities build more capacity, to help reduce detention, to reduce recidivism, to reduce disproportionality. And here's an update. Last year, I announced the creation of a place where young people could go to take a breath, to push the pause button, to get out of an unhealthy situation. This space would serve as another off-ramp for young people who may be on a trajectory to further conflict and involvement with the criminal justice system. It is now open in Auburn with room for 8 kids. The 24-hour on-call team of social workers and problem solvers is now taking phone calls from law enforcement and families in crisis. We are making a difference in the lives of young people. We've been able to dramatically reduce the number of kids booked for crimes and the number in detention, and now we're able to make the transition to public health because of the leadership of Judge Inveen and Judge St. Clair and others, of Sheriff Joe Hanknick and Prosecutor Satterberg, Defense Director Youngcourt, Detention Director Hayes, Juvenile Division Director Jones, and of County Council members, including Larry Gossett, whose lifelong commitment to justice and civil rights inspires us all. We will do everything in our power to make sure young people who have been hurt have the chance to heal. And those who may have stumbled are able to catch their step, regain their balance, and find their stride. There's probably no type of law enforcement incident that rightly engenders stronger public interest than an officer-involved death. We ask officers to take great risks and to accept great responsibility. So when someone dies as a result of police action, the public and law enforcement need to know what happened. The King County Charter requires an investigation into the causes and circumstances of any death involving a member of law enforcement in the performance of their duties. King County Code gives me, as the executive, responsibility for the inquest process. Last year, I convened 13 inquests, sadly, the most since I took office in 2009. For the last 40 years, inquests have been before a 6-member district court jury who listens to testimony and then determines the significant factual issues. Open to the public, it is a process that tries to determine the basic facts about what happened, but families have often come away frustrated with more questions than answers. They wonder whether the prosecutor's office could truly be a neutral facilitator in the proceedings while at the same time weighing whether to criminally charge officers. Families ask why police officers are afforded lawyers, but they're forced to hire their own legal representation. We take these questions seriously. So in January, I ordered a hold on all inquests, and at the same time, district court judges decided they would no longer preside over the proceedings. It was, after all, always an executive branch duty, and I thank the judges for their decades of service. And for all these reasons, it is time for a change. Helping us determine what a new system may look like is a review committee I convened of 7 community leaders: Jeffrey Beaver, Faye Brooks, Sam Palka, Rick Williams, Judge Dean Lum, and Davita Briscoe. For the last few months, they've met with stakeholders and held public focus groups. They've listened and they've learned. And as they said they would, committee members have delivered to me a set of recommendations. The report will be available on my website. We want to hear people's thoughts and comments. We will answer questions like, what is the role of a jury? Should prosecutors run the proceeding? Should inquests take place in a court setting or in another venue? Finally, we need to examine whether and how passage just last month of use of force reforms affects our inquest process. I look forward to the community's response before issuing a new executive order. One thing we know will be different, thanks to the work of Councilmember Jean Cole Wells. Any family wanting representation will be afforded an attorney through our Public Defense Department. This is the very first idea I asked the committee to review, and I'm grateful the council took it up so quickly and passed it. I believe inquests are essential to learn the facts about deaths involving law enforcement. Inquests hold a unique place in our legal landscape. They do not, and they should not, infringe upon other potential actions such as internal police reviews, independent public oversight, civil litigation, or criminal charges. No other jurisdiction in the nation does what we do. We must build on that history of transparency, on those decades of experience. Families need to know the facts. Law enforcement needs to know the facts. The community needs to know the facts. I will craft a new directive on inquests that provides the greatest opportunity to understand what happened in these tragic circumstances and help ensure future inquests and the incidents that make them necessary are as rare as we can possibly make them. When we consider change, we know that for too many of us, change means rising rents and paychecks that don't cover the bills. For too many people, change can mean moving from a home to a friend's couch, to a car, to the streets. Fighting homelessness is the single biggest challenge facing our region today. And while we are very good at helping people exit homelessness, the growing numbers of people who lose housing every year overwhelms our ability to respond. We need a better approach. We need to focus on the root causes of homelessness. We need better coordination across the region, every city sharing resources and ideas. And that is the promise of One Table. Along with Mayor Durkin of Seattle and Mayor Backus of Auburn, I convened One Table to develop a community-driven response to homelessness. There's a lot to consider. Since 2011, the number of units available to those with the lowest incomes has shrunk, while the number of high-end units has sharply increased. If you graph the number of homeless people in the point-of-time count and the average King County rent for a studio apartment, every year they move absolutely in tandem, up and up and up. But it's not just about housing costs. Despite the obvious need, Washington spends below the national average on behavioral health services. One Table is formed to write a new narrative. The people creating strategies have extensive experience with housing and homelessness issues, or have even experienced homelessness themselves. Later this month, One Table will announce a series of action steps on affordable housing, access to behavioral health care, criminal justice and child welfare reforms, and jobs and wages. We're not waiting. We're employing the One Table approach right now, joining with the Block Project and Humble Design to provide small houses and furnishings, even a loaned truck courtesy of U-Haul, to help families leaving homelessness, to make sure they are successful in their new homes. One of the first programs in our Best Starts for Kids initiative took on youth and family homelessness. And the results underscore that we can tackle this crisis. We designed a simple program to prevent young people and families from experiencing homelessness, an approach dramatically less expensive than shelter, and more importantly, one that prevents people from suffering the fear and uncertainty that homelessness inflicts. Case managers start with a simple question. What do you need to keep your family housed? We customize that intervention, whether it's catching up on past due rent, or helping you find a better paying job, or helping with transportation. The initial results are in, and they are remarkable. I am pleased to announce that thanks to this effort, more than 4,000 people who are facing homelessness are instead living in the safety of their own home, including 2,400 young people and children. So here is a simple intervention that clearly works. It's not solving every problem, but it's helping thousands of people remain self-sufficient. I will seek to expand this program so that we can replicate its success for more people across the region. We have an obligation to our older residents as well. People over 65 are the fastest growing demographic in King County, and we are seeing more seniors who need help with housing and other services. Last year, voters passed the Veterans, Seniors, and Human Services Levy. And I want to particularly thank Councilmember Peter von Reichbauer, who was so instrumental in the creation of the original Veterans and Human Services Levy. By adding seniors, we can offer help to make sure older residents are able to stay in their homes and stay connected to community. I want to thank the chair of the council, Joe McDermott, for his leadership on homelessness issues, as well as serving on One Table along with council members Colwells and Dembowski. So, skeptics, you are on notice. Cynics, beware. We have solutions that work. We can prove it. We have the data. By uniting governments and providers and businesses and philanthropies, we can take these solutions to scale all across the region. To be sure, this is a crisis. But we have proven time and again, think Forward Thrust, think Sound Transit 3, that if we come together in common purpose, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. And the same goes for making sure every person has the security of a safe place to call home. Doing all of these things and all the other functions of government, of course, takes resources, public resources, yes, taxes. Here too, we need to do better. We need change. I've been talking a lot about taxes lately. I spoke to our Sound Cities Association earlier this year on the topic, and I appreciate the leadership of the mayors from our 39 cities in King County and the Sound Cities Association, led this year by Mayor Amy Wallen of Kirkland. We've known for a long time that this state has the least fair tax system in the nation. But the easiest thing for a politician to do is kick the can down the road. Talking about taxes isn't easy, but doing something about taxes seems pretty much impossible. If this region and this state are truly to fulfill our tremendous potential, we need action. Our region's economy is the strongest it has ever been. More wealth has been generated than at any other time in history, and this is a great thing and something we're focused on sustaining for years to come. And yet, as County Council Budget Chair Dave Upthegrove knows all too well, amid all this unprecedented growth and success, governments, local governments, Washington state government, cannot raise the revenues to provide the most basic services and infrastructure, to pave the roads, to educate the children. Why? Not because we collectively cannot afford it. Our economy generates plenty of capacity to do all that is needed without breaking a sweat. The problem is this: how much you are personally asked to pay has less and less to do with how well you are doing in this economy. It's not fair. And with growing income inequality, as more and more of our collective income goes to those who have the most, the system becomes even less fair. Our economy is like your shiny, modern, remodeled house, and the tax system is like the 90-year-old knob and tube wiring your contractor forgot to replace. It is not up to the job. It's not up to code. You need to upgrade if you want to be able to run your clothes dryer and your hair dryer at the same time, or you're going to blow a fuse. The combination of legislative inaction and rapid economic change have created a tax system that has not kept up with the times. The result, as a state, we are not able to accomplish the things now that we were able to do just a generation ago. We need a fair tax system that provides the resources to make sure every kid gets a good education and a good job and has the chance to do better than their parents. To build the transit and roads and all the infrastructure to meet the needs of a growing economy. To ensure every person has the security of adequate health care. My vision: a tax system for Washington that is fair, simple, stable, encourages job creation, and meets the needs of the public. Here's the thing. The legislature chose to solve the statewide school funding shortfall by handing the bill to King County property owners, homeowners in particular. King County is the biggest county. King County is the most prosperous county. And so it's to be expected, it is in fact right, that we would help out the parts of the state that aren't experiencing the kind of economic growth that we are seeing here. But we need to do that in a way that is fair. As a former legislator, I'm pretty hard on the legislature, but I want to acknowledge that they did respond when we put forth a measure to provide local property tax relief for seniors, veterans, and those with disabilities. That is going to help. But the entire system is irrational and convoluted. Here's an example. As I mentioned, I live in West Seattle. I live quite near my folks. They live in the house in which I was raised. It is a modest house owned by two long-retired public school teachers. They get their pension and their Social Security. And the legislature just handed them a big property tax increase on their little house. Under the legislature's formula, in 2019 and for years thereafter, most parts of the state will actually see property taxes go down. Their school districts are going to get subsidized by the people of King County, including those who are retired and living on a fixed income or struggling to stay in their home. That is clearly not fair. We have to figure out how to right the system. On average, property taxes in King County will go up 17% this year, mostly because of that McCleary school funding solution. That is prompting a lot of conversations about property taxes and taxes in general. So let's use this moment to open the conversation, to re-examine what we're doing and how we're doing it, and to usher in a new era. Our current tax system is not written in stone. It's not beyond our ability to change. Somebody made it up, and we can remake it. I look forward to working with Assessor Wilson and leaders across the region to rethink the basics of our tax system and come up with something that meets both the needs of the 21st century and the definition of what's fair. Finally, as we consider all the changes we've experienced and all those yet to come, I want to submit that there are some things that should never change. Some things are so precious that we must watch over them, ensure that they remain special, so that future generations can enjoy them and be inspired by them. We live in a remarkable place, a place of forests and mountains, and rivers so close they are a backdrop to our everyday moments and a welcome retreat from our hectic lives. I've proposed a county-wide initiative to finish the job of protecting our natural beauty forever. The Land Conservation Initiative sets forth the goal of preserving, within a single generation, the most valuable and threatened land throughout King County: forests, farms, natural areas, wildlife habitat, and urban green space. Over the last 2 years, King County and its cities have mapped, priced, and prioritized 65,000 acres of land that we must protect. Places like the Weyerhaeuser campus with its forests and salmon-bearing stream. Like the Vashon-Maury Island shoreline, critical habitat for fish and wildlife, including our endangered orcas. And here I want to stop and thank outgoing Senate Majority Leader Sharon Nelson, who stood up to a gravel mine and protected so much of this precious ecosystem. We've identified ways to marshal public and private resources to do most of the job. In the coming weeks, I will be laying out details of the next steps. They're going to involve innovative ideas on financing to allow us to move more quickly while there's still time. I want to thank Councilmember Rod Dombowski. I know this work is close to his heart, and I thank him for his focus and his commitment. To those who work so hard to preserve what makes this region so great, join with me in this effort. Let us save our most vulnerable lands for ourselves and for our children. You know, when you think about conservation, you can't help but think about our national situation. We live in a time when the president, in sharp contrast to so many of his predecessors of both parties, this president has made the point of scaling back protections of our nation's most sacred places. It is disorienting and alarming. And sadly, it is in line with all that's happened in the last 14 months. The next 2 years will no doubt be some of the most turbulent in American history. No one, the president included, really thought he was going to win. We will see if America continues down the path he's tweeting out or chooses a different course. The promise of this nation, that all are created equal, that everyone, no matter their race or religion, no matter their social status, everyone deserves the full and equal opportunity to succeed. That promise remains unfulfilled. This president casts doubt on whether that even remains our collective ideal. Here in King County, my goal is that all people have the opportunity to thrive, to realize their potential, to contribute to the life of this community and of this nation. That is entirely consistent with the hopes, if not all the actions, of America's brilliant but flawed founders, and of those flawed and imperfect people since who have put their shoulder to the task of building this still imperfect union. On those mornings when I get to take my daughter to school, and she now is 3 going on 4, I begin my day reminded of why I do this job. Because for her, for all our kids, we have the awesome responsibility of continuing the work that will never be finished and leaving them a world that is better than today. Across this region, today, tomorrow, in the coming weeks and months, we can come together to make a stronger, more equitable community, a place of shared prosperity that values every person. We will be the change we want to see. We will show the nation and the world that we can create a regional government as innovative, as compassionate, and as forward-looking as the people who call this place home. Thank you.